Right now, I really hate this reality that one of my musical heroes is gone, and I understand that Dave and Dave mailbag is full, so right now I'm done. Whoops, sorry, one more. I'm not one to curse, but the title of the band's third album with Sam seems to be the most appropriate word right now. Air Force J and Half Moon Bay. What do you say to that, Dave?
Thank you, Air Force J. Very well written. Appreciate you putting in the time for that.
Yeah, and I'll add one more. Right now, the world is realizing just how important and innovative Eddie Van Halen was. I don't know about you, Dave, but I've been seeing an unbelievable outpour of love and support toward Ed in so many areas that I didn't expect it from, you know what I mean? It's funny, that it came from all different areas. It wasn't just like, the guitar magazines, the fan websites, and it's coming from even broader spectrums, you know what I mean? So that's for sure. Letter number 19 comes from James Harris of Clay, Alabama, and he says, "This is a day for all Van Halen fans would hope would never come. Countless King Edward fanatics have to say goodbye to our hero. Eddie is my all-time favorite musician, and his passing has left a deep hole in my heart. I was going through my Van Halen CDs and found a tribute album that I nearly forgot about, titled Everybody Wants Some. It came out in 1997. It is by mostly unknown musicians. The standout track is a version of Eruption by Reverend Ed Brahms, and it is played on a church pipe organ. It could be a nice bookend to the monk-esque version of Cathedral you guys played a few podcasts ago. And my love and sympathies goes out to the Van Halen family and friends. Eddie will be loved and remembered forever, and all who appreciate his music." And he says that he's happy that we are continuing the podcast, and he thanks us so much for our impromptu tribute that came out. And that comes from James Harris from Clay, Alabama. Well, it is our pleasure to honor Ed. We're not happy to have to do it, but we felt it was important to pay the proper respects to him in a timely fashion. Right, Dave?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the least we could do.
Yeah, least we could do. Letter number 20 comes from Andy Haberman when he said, "When I heard the news, I immediately thought of you both. What a fucking fucked up year. No, we all wanted deep in our heart of hearts to hear the maestro create a symphony once more. David Lee Roth invoked the Grateful Dead tonight with his caption, 'What a long, great trip it's been. I'm a bit rusty in my prayers, but I want to believe Eddie is up there laying down a heavenly solo with Mr. Peart, kicking the double bass drum hard. God bless you both for doing this labor of love that you have. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'll ride the podcast train until the wheels fall off the track with you. Much love, Andy Haberman." And then he also attached a tribute done by Bob Lefsetz, who has his own, the Bob Lefsetz podcast, and The Cradle Will No Longer Rock. So if you guys want to check out the Bob Lefsetz podcast, his last name is Lefsetz. He is a big Van Halen fan, and he has talked about Van Halen, and he does a really nice soliloquy, which is way too long for Dave and I to get into right now. But if you want to check out that podcast, please check it out, because he did a really nice job as an incredible tribute to Ed. That is in the Bob Lefsetz podcast. And Andy, I just wanted to say, I think Eddie is playing more with Bonham than he is with Neil Peart, because he's way closer to Alex's style. Alex always modeled himself after Bonham, so I could see Eddie playing with John Bonham for sure. What about you, Dave?
That's an interesting observation. You might, you might be right about that. But man, we lost those two big legends alone this year.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible.
Really, really hard. Really hard.
Okay, so letter number 21 comes from Darren Leach. He's known as Daz from Down Under because he's from Australia. So sad to hear about Eddie's passing. I'm still in shock. At least we have the amazing songs he left behind. I met him on the 1998 tour when he came to Australia with Gary Cherone. Eddie was smiling and the rest of the band was happy to sign autographs. And what do you think the first things will be released from the 5150 vaults once they eventually get open? What would you like to see released? Or do you think there was a lot lost in that hard drive malfunction from a few years ago? Darren Leach. Okay, well, the problem with the whole vaults is there's a lot of stuff on there that is like jams, that is like riffs, that is like ideas. That's the way Ed worked. Van Halen wasn't an over-recorder. Like, for example, Prince or Bruce Springsteen, those guys, holy shit, over-recorded. What does that mean? So if Bruce does an album, say he's got like 12 songs on the album, he might have recorded 40 songs for that album and then chose that 12. Van Halen didn't work that way. So a lot of those tapes that Ed has, a lot of that is jamming, riffs, ideas. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean it's not good. It's just, if you're going to do that, that takes a real long time to put together. And it's also, you don't want to just put out like raw tape of that. You know what I mean? Even though we think it would be great. It just, I don't know if a commercial release, if they would allot for that. So what I would suggest, if you're going to release stuff, is release what is done and available. I think you could put together maybe a compilation of maybe some of the leftover Sammy tracks, leftover Dave tracks, and leftover Gary tracks. And I think there would be a nice package there with some full songs. You know what I mean? And right. Don't get me wrong. Some of them are going to be demo stage. Like we all know, like for example, like the second Gary album is probably going to be a demo stage, but it would be enough to at least enjoy. You know what I mean? Like not just half-baked stuff. Like it would actually be a song. You know what I mean? Like beginning to end song with lyrics and vocals and, the whole thing. You probably have to clean these things up for sure. Although there is some stuff that is done. For example, that Sammy song, Between Us Two. That is definitely a finished song that's sitting in there. We always talked about the cover of In the Midnight Hour with Dave. That's from the 1984 sessions. Definitely finished. Also, they had the bunch of tracks from the 2000 reunion. So there is stuff there. Well, plus there is that box set that Warner Brothers has sitting on the shelf from the first album. That would probably be the first thing that they should put out, but I don't know, like, who has to sign off on that? Wolfgang, I think it was on our last episode, he talked about an extra track from Different Kind of Truth. There's that, you know what I mean? Like, little things like that. So if you put together, like, a cool compilation, that would be interesting. I would suggest something like that, and also maybe something like the first album, you know what I mean? Which was that box set that they have ready to go. But you could probably do that on almost every Van Halen album, at least during the Dave era, that they probably, or to do that kind of a like special release like Metallica does. Those guys do incredible releases. What do you think, Dave?
The only other thing I would add is a live album.
Oh, right.
From the prime era of the band.
Oh, right, of course. That's for sure.
Because they've got to have one lying around somewhere. I know they do.
Yeah, they've got to.
I know they do.
They've got to.
So that's the only other thing I would add. But yeah, you said the first album, the demos from the first album. I think there were a lot of demos done for A Different Kind of Truth. Yeah. I don't know if any of them have vocals or anything, but still you could throw some of those. All sorts of stuff, all sorts of songs. I forget what it was. I think they did Big Trouble for the Diver Down sessions.
Right.
But they never released it. So, yeah, like you said, all the demos and the songs that never made it onto the album, they could totally make a box set on that alone.
Yeah, I would imagine. Letter number 22 comes from Chris Rooks, and he says, "Hey guys, I think it's safe to say that we are all shocked and stunned by the news of Eddie. I never met the man, but I feel, as many probably do, like I have lost a family member. This can't be happening, right? I mean, he was going to beat this and keep blazing on, right? I'm just crushed. My heart, my thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. We all mourn in different ways, and watching classic Van Halen concerts on YouTube helps me. I stumbled on a video that I have not seen before, and I wanted to share with both of you. It's a video from MTV News touring 5150 Studios with Ed as a tour guide. It's just awesome to see, and it's from 1998. You may have seen this already, but if you haven't, here it is. Thank you both for the podcast and for waving the VH banner. God bless Van Halen forever, Chris Rooks." Well, there is this new video. It's not new, but it just got released, of MTV, and it's like 8 minutes and change of Chris Connolly from MTV News going through 5150 with Eddie. Dave, you saw this, right?
Oh, yeah. So cool.
Wow.
So cool.
That really was incredible. I don't know why it was shelved, but I'm wondering if it was shelved because, I don't know, they felt like it showed too much, or, I mean, it was the most in-depth I think we've ever seen at 5150, and the one taste that you walk away with is, this was no high glossy studio. This was like a workshop. For example, if he was like a craftsman, if he was like a woodworking guy, he's like, it's like a shop with all kinds of pieces and of equipment and wires and everything everywhere. I mean, it was really like a laboratory of a mad scientist for sure. I don't know why it was held back. I don't know if Van Halen held it back, but it was really cool. And he talked about Wolfie on there, and they showed the wall of tapes. And then the interesting part is, there's one part when Chris Connolly points to all these tapes and he says, wow, someone could take a year or two just going through all these tapes. And then Eddie says, no, it has to be me. Here's the clip.
See, all those tapes, especially the numbered ones, those are all music that I've written since I built the studio, and what Don Landy, who we did 8 records with,
right.
We had a Radio Shack computer, and we ended up numbering everything, punch it up on the computer, and tell me what was on it. Well, the computer took a dump on us. We even took it to used laboratories to see if research laboratories see if they get anything off the hard drive, and nothing.
So all this stuff is waiting to be archived by somebody.
Yeah, and the only person that can do that is me, because nobody knows what I like.
But it's some dream job for somebody to sit in a room and spend the next year and a half listening to your music.
I mean, there's so much stuff there. One day I just grabbed the ladder and went up there and put it on, and it was Right Now. And it was labeled 1983.
Which is when you wrote it, the music.
Yeah, actually before Jump.
Wow.
That's an interesting
Well, because he had
part.
a hard drive crash, and the list of what they had was lost.
Right. It was like some sort of like Radio Shack computer or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. It was very interesting to hear, but let me tell you, if anybody has not seen this, you have to see this. This is a piece of gold for sure. I tell you, in terms of the archives, I think this is what we're going to get, is we're going to get pieces coming from fans that are going to release. I mean, even Dave sent me some links to stuff that came out this week that wasn't available before. I don't know why they're releasing them now that Ed is gone, but I don't know what that changes anything. Why wouldn't it be released before? What would stop that? It doesn't make any sense. But I think people are, I guess memorializing Ed that way by releasing stuff. I don't know. What do you think, Dave?
I think you're right. There's like a line in the sand where people go, okay, I can release stuff now.
Yeah, I guess
and
so.
It's interesting because it's just like way better quality stuff has come out in the past few days. And if you're looking to see what any of that is, you can go to vhtrading.com and you can get a good flavor for the kind of things that are coming out.
That's for sure.
I mean, it's great it's coming out, but it's sad the reason why.
Right, obviously. One thing he noted in the video interview with Chris Connolly is that is how Right Now is written. He pulled out that riff, that idea from that wall of tapes, and the riff was created in 1983, or the melody, whatever you want to call it, and he wrote Right Now from that. And that just goes to show you how Eddie works. So that's a perfect example. But there's, like I said, licks, jams, riffs are what's on those tapes, I guess. I don't know, obviously. And I'm sure there are full songs too, but I would imagine that a lot of it is ideas, All right, so letter number 23 comes from, you know him, you love him, Dave. And here he is.
Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane.
It's Midwest fucking Ron. Midwest Ron. And he is coming in, and he's kind of putting a pin in the Eddie situation for now. And he says, I'm currently dealing with this week's news by trying to keep things as normal as possible. So he's just handing in a letter on something Van Halen related, of course, but separate. So he says, as you have probably learned already since the last mailbag, Keith Kessinger did not play Waldo in the original Hot for Teacher video. He was only playing that character in his parody video. He says, without confirmation, the actor that probably played Waldo is David Von Gorder. So Midwest Ron always coming in and making the correction, Dave. So I looked it up on IMDb, and David Van Gorder was the guy who played Waldo. So we make that correction. Of course, it's Midwest Ron who's correcting us there. He's always slapping us on the wrist. And there you go. So anything to say to Midwest?
Thank goodness for Midwest Ron.
That's
fact
right.
checker.
That's right. Fact checker extraordinaire. Letter number 24 comes from Sean Franklin. He says, I can't believe he's gone, meaning Eddie, and he's got a sad face. He says, and Mark Stone. And, of course, Mark Stone, the former bassist of Van Halen, that was prior to the official lineup of Van Halen, prior to Michael Anthony. Obviously, as we noted in the news, has passed away as well, which is eerily just days before Ed passing away, which I thought was really strange. Now, letter number 25. This comes from Kurt Snyder, and he says, I'm sure you've heard all this and have heard all this before, but Ed's health took a turn. When they were planning the tour, we were all thinking